Hey, what's up, everyone? Today we're going to be talking about and listening to song interpolations slash samples, but I'm just going to be referring to them as samples. If you don't know, an interpolation is when you re-record a melody and or change it up in some way, and that could include the lyrics too. Sampling is just when you take a melody from someone else's material and use it as it is in your own recording. Interpolation is usually used when the artist that owns the copyright declines a licensing request to use their material from another artist. I mean, I would think that the artist that interpolates another melody would still have to give credit to the original artist, but it's just a way to get around using a melody rather than, not being able to use it at all. So though they're both technically different, they're pretty much the same. And what I've noticed over the years is that most songs that sample other songs are usually in the hip hop and rap genre, although not always. First, I want to talk about sampling and how I used to think about it. When I was younger, I always looked down on sampling somebody else's work. I used to think that the artist was just lazy. Now I think that an artist that samples somebody else's work is just admiring the song, or they love that part that they're sampling, or they love the whole song, or they're just paying homage to the artist because they admire the artist. I used to think that artists that sampled weren't talented enough to come up with something on their own, but I realized that it still takes talent to structure the song around that sample. And, you still need to do work to make the new song something interesting or good. I used to think that sampling another song wasn't original, but then as you get older and you start researching and experiencing more and more music and finding out about how music is actually made, you find out that nothing is really original anymore. It's all been done, and everything is based off of what came before it. Whether it's an influence from classical music or even going as far back as the cradle of life in Africa, whatever you write today, whether it's intentional or not, is not original. Generally, it's always been the same 12 notes. Think about that. 12 notes for centuries. People have made thousands and thousands of songs from those same 12 notes. The only difference is how you put your own style or perspective on songs that you write or compose. Plus, if somebody samples your song, it means you'll be getting paid royalties for the song or songs that you probably aren't making any money on anymore, because these samples are generally after a popular song has had its time in the spotlight already. Sampling has brought some past songs up in the charts, even some 50 plus years later. Of course, these samples that I'm going to be using today in this series are the ones that I either like the most or that I think are most popular. I'm going to do 5 samples of video in this series. And what I'm going to do is play a song and tell you a bit about it and or the artist, and give you a few seconds to think about what popular song from the past that it samples. Okay, so without further, let's get to the samples. All right, the first song is Touch the Sky by Kanye West from 2005. When I first heard this song, I was like, okay, I like that. I love most of Kanye's earlier stuff. Then I went on Twitter and saw comments about the song and people thinking the music was completely original. And I was like, no, it's a sample. I can't blame people for not knowing that this was a sample because, hey, some people don't listen to older music or weren't around or influenced by it. But it still annoys me when someone thinks it's original and it's not. All right, so what song did it sample? The song that it sampled was Move On Up by Curtis Mayfield from 1970. Move On Up failed to chart when it was released, but then found success later on when disco group Destination recorded a medley that included it, and it went to number 1 on the disco charts. But it only reached number 68 on the soul singles chart. Mayfield was all-encompassing when it came to a song because he was adamant about writing and producing most of them, including this one. It's been used numerous times in covers, samples, and commercials, including Trolls World Tour, Semi-Pro, Barbershop, The Next Cut, and Toyota commercials. I think it's a great song, and I can't believe it didn't chart when it was released. But maybe the unedited, almost 9-minute version had something to do with that. All right, the next song is You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer from 1990. You Can't Touch This hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot R&B Hip-Hop Singles and Tracks. It won R&B Best Song and Best Rap Solo Performance at the 33rd Grammy Awards in 1991. It also made history for being the first rap song nominated for Best Record of the Year at those same Grammy Awards. Not only did Hammer sample the next song, but he also sampled the pants. That style of pants went as far back as thousands of years of Persia, India, and Turkey. The fashion came to America in the Victorian era in the 1800s for women who didn't want to wear tight, restrictive clothing, but women didn't feel comfortable wearing man-like clothes. They came up again in 1911 and were called harem pants or trousers. It didn't gain more popularity until Hammer started wearing them, and of course they are now called hammer pants. Alright, so what song did it sample? It sampled Super Freak by Rick James from 1981, which was also famously parodied by Dave Chappelle on his show. Super Freak was written by Rick James as a silly type of joke song. James said he wasn't excited about the song, but he wanted a song on the album that white folks could dance to. James was known as being a freak himself and actually was arrested with his 21-year-old girlfriend for allegedly kidnapping a 24-year-old woman for sex and torturing her with a hot cocaine pipe over 3 days. So I guess we're substituting the word freak for a criminal madman now. James sued MC Hammer when he heard "You Can't Touch This," and they settled out of court. The irony is that "You Can't Touch This" got James his only Grammy Award because of the sample. Super Freak reached number 16 on the Billboard Hot 100 and was ranked number 477 out of Rolling Stone's 500 greatest songs of all time. The next song is Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang from 1979. Yes, Rapper's Delight is pretty old, coming out in 1979, but it did sample a previous song. Rapper's Delight is number 251 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time, and number 2 on VH1's 100 greatest hip-hop songs. Although it only reached number 36 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was also the first rap song to enter the US Hot 100. Rapper's Delight was the second rap song ever released commercially in the US. The first was King Tim III Personality Jock by the Fatback Band just a few weeks before Rapper's Delight was released. King Tim III didn't enjoy even half as much of the fame that Rapper's Delight brought the Sugar Hill Gang though, and a lot of people think the song that it sampled had a big part in that success. Alright, so what song did it sample? Well, it sampled Good Times by Chic in 1979. Good Times was ranked number 229 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest songs of all time and has become one of the most sampled tunes in music history. Billboard magazine also named Good Times the number 1 soul single of 1979. It reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. It was released in June of 79, and Rapper's Delight was released in September of 79. And 79 was the best year of all in human history, obviously, because that's the year I was born. So besides being incredibly good looking, a genius, and the best songwriter ever, I'm also very humble. You're welcome. Oh yeah, back to the song. Good Times also influenced the band Queen when they wrote the song Another One Bites the Dust. But the press started saying that Chic ripped off Queen, even though Another One Bites the Dust came out about a year after Good Times. Bernard Edwards was the bass player for Chic, and he said that John Deacon, who was the bass player for Queen, hung out with them in the studio one time and was inspired by Good Times bass line. John Deacon is the main writer on Another One Bites the Dust. The next song is Juicy by the Notorious B.I.G. or Biggie Smalls or Big Papa. Take your pick. It's from 1994. Born and raised in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, Biggie wrote the lyrics to Juicy about going from rags to riches, being poor, and making it as a rapper. It reached number 1 on the US Hot Rap Singles chart, number 14 on the US Hot R&B Hip Hop Songs, and number 27 on the Billboard Hot 100. Juicy was named the greatest hip hop song of all time in a 2019 poll for BBC Music. It's not just any old poll either. It was a poll with 100 hip hop experts, whatever that means. I think I'm an expert on listening to hip hop. Does that count? Biggie is also thought to be one of the greatest rappers of all time, just like the next artist to sample a song, but we'll get to that in a bit. Just like that artist, Biggie was assassinated, although in a different year in 1997. So what song does it sample? It samples Juicy Fruit by Mtume from 1983. Now, Juicy Fruit never cracked the top 40, coming in at number 45, but it reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot Black Singles, and it sold over 1 million copies. It was also ranked at number 15 on the Tracks of the Year for 1983 by New Musical Express magazine, or NME. It also sampled Rappin' Duke from 1984 by the artist of the same name. Rappin' Duke was a novelty song that parodied famous actor John Wayne's distinctive voice, but while rapping. Despite being a novelty song, it reached number 73 on the Billboard Hot R&B Hip Hop Songs. I mean, it's a weird song to sample, but Biggie made it work even though it was a very small sample. This next and final song pairing is probably my favorite song sample ever. The last song is Changes by Tupac from 1998. Changes only reached number 32 on the Billboard Hot 100, but it will always be one of the greatest social awareness songs of all time. Tupac raps about poverty, drugs, police brutality, self-reflection, race relations, and racism. It was nominated for Best Rap Solo Performance at the Grammy Awards in 2000 and remains the only posthumous song to be nominated in this category. Changes was recorded in 1992, and Tupac was assassinated in 1996, but the song wasn't remixed and released until 1998. Like I alluded to in the Biggie sample, Tupac is also considered to be one of the best rappers of all time, and both seem to be figures larger than life. This is one of those songs for me where I always get chills no matter how many times I hear it. This next song that it sampled has a lot in common with Changes, in that, of course, it was a sample that Tupac used, but it also has pretty much the same social awareness message, although it's done in a different way. It also, in my opinion, has one of, if not the best piano riffs of all time in a song. Just like with Changes, it usually gives me chills every time I hear it. Okay, so what song did it sample? That song is none other than The Way It Is by Bruce Hornsby and the Range from 1986. The Way It Is message revolves around the civil rights movement that took place between 1954 and 1968. A lot of people thought that this song was a bit nihilistic and defeatist because it was talking about social ills and saying that, that's just the way it is and you have to accept it. But they always overlook the line, but don't you believe them? Hornsby has said numerous times that it's about going forward despite the people that said things will never change, meaning you have to make things change instead of just accepting the way things are. The Way It Is reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and has become a song that has been sampled tons of times because of the hugely popular piano riff. Alright, so that's the first video in this series, and I hope you enjoyed it. So comment down below about the songs that you love because they incorporated samples from past songs in them. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll see you later.
They can't buy a job. Man in a silk suit hurries by as he catches the poor old lady's eyes. Just for fun, he says, get a job. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Ah, but don't you believe them? Said, hey little boy, you can't go where the others go. You don't look like they do. Said, hey old man, how can you stand to think that way? Did you really think about it before you made the rules? He said so. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. That's just the way it is. Oh, but don't you believe that? Well, they passed a law